Here's a list of facts in chronological order. Just the facts. First, 1990, Interstate 40 is completed through Johnston County, connecting Smithfield and Clayton directly to Raleigh. October 1991, Johnston County institutes land use zoning for the very first time. The Heritage Center's official county history notes the occasion matter-of-factly. It said suburbanization has followed the newly completed interstate from Raleigh, and the county now needs rules for itself that it never needed before. That's October of 91. 1992, Eleanor Creech, a Democrat, is elected to the Johnston County Board of Commissioners. She is the first woman to ever be elected to that body. In 94, Republicans sweep North Carolina, flipping the congressional delegation from an 8-4 Democratic to 8-4 Republican, picking up state legislative seats and beginning the long institutional takeover of county governments across eastern North Carolina. 1996, Republicans take control of the Johnston County Board of Election. 1998, Republicans take control of the Johnston County Board of County Commissioners. The first time Republicans have controlled county government in Johnston County since 1928-1930, during the Hoover Wave. Also in 1998, Dorothy Johnson, a Democrat, wins a seat on the Johnston County Board of Education. She's the first African-American ever elected to a countywide office in Johnston County's history. Same election, same county, same year. Republicans take the county commission. A black Democrat woman wins the school board. That's not a contradiction. That is a portrait of a county in the middle of becoming something it had never been before, and the portrait has two faces at one time. Let's get to it. Let's start with the road. The NC 42 corridor experienced rapid development during the completion of I-40 through Johnston County in the early 1990s. Fact. In 1980, Clayton had about 4,000 people. In 90, it had 4,700. In 2000, it had nearly 7,000. That jump, 50% growth in a single decade, that happened in the 1990s, and it happened because of a single road. Land use zoning was instituted throughout Johnston County on October 1st, 1991, as suburbanization followed the recently completed I-40 from Raleigh. A county that had never needed zoning laws suddenly had to have them desperately, because people from Raleigh were moving in, not many, not yet, but enough to change things. Young families, working people who wanted affordable housing and didn't mind a commute so much, people who knew Raleigh but needed somewhere cheaper to live. And here's the thing about those people, they brought their politics with them. Johnston County had gone Republican at the presidential level since 1972, when Nixon carried against McGovern and put in his Southern strategy, which worked incredibly well. Every presidential election since, except Jimmy Carter in 76, had gone Republican, but the local offices, the commissioners, the school board, the county clerk, the register of deeds, those stayed Democratic. The same families, the same names, the same civic infrastructure that had run Johnston County since Reconstruction had survived every Republican presidential wave by simply not changing at the local level. And even in the best of Republican years, Democrats always managed to maintain their grip on most local offices, which served as a kind of firewall against the GOP's dream of a permanent realignment until the 1990s. See, rural white counties in the South began voting consistently Republican in the mid-1990s, nearly a generation after suburban white Southerners had entered the GOP. The reasons were multiple: the nationalization of politics through cable news, the contract with America from Newt Gingrich, giving Republicans a coherent local message for the first time, and crucially, the arrival of newcomers who didn't have the same ancestral loyalty to local democratic institutions that three-generation Johnston County families had. And when you've lived in Johnston County your whole life, your family has voted Democratic for 100 years, your grandfather was county commissioner, and your neighbor runs the Democratic Party, you vote Democrat. When you moved here from Raleigh 2 years ago because Clayton was affordable and I-40 made the commute manageable, you vote however you voted before you left Raleigh. And in 1990s North Carolina, a lot of people leaving Raleigh for the suburbs were voting Republican, partially as a rebuke of the Clinton years. Republicans gained control of the County Board of Education in 1996 and the Board of County Commissioners in 1998. The firewall broke. After more than 60 years since 1928, during the Hoover Wave, Republicans controlled Johnston County government. Now, here's where the story gets complicated in the best possible way. The same county that flipped Republican in 1998 also, in the same election cycle, elected Dorothy Johnson. Dorothy Johnson came to Johnston County via Virginia. She grew up in Petersburg, attended Virginia State University, graduated in 1965 with a degree in home economics education. She moved to Warren County for her first job as an extension agent. She later moved to Johnston County to set roots when her husband went overseas for the Vietnam conflict. It was Johnston County where she ended up growing her family, raising her children, and becoming a steadfast community member. She was not a person who moved here from Raleigh in the 90s to chase affordable housing. She was a person who had been here for decades, who had raised her children here, who had served her community here. She had served on school advisory councils. She had led the Clayton Elementary PTA. She had co-chaired the Johnston County Citizens for Better Schools, the organization that passed 2 school bond issues, meaning she had helped build the very school system that she was running to govern. In 1998, Dorothy Johnson became the first African American to win a countywide election when she secured that seat on the Board of Education. First in the county's history in 1998. First in the county's history in 1998, not 1746. That was 250 years ago. In a county where Smith Brooks had served on the Smithfield Board of Commissioners in 1872, where the Fusion era had briefly opened political space for black office holders in the 1890s, where Max Sowell had broken back through in 1969 at the town level in Selma, the countywide barrier didn't fall until 1998. It fell the same year Republicans took everything else. Now, let me try to explain what I think was happening, understanding that history is complicated and honest people can read the very same facts very differently. Johnston County in the late 1990s was a county in tremendous transition from 2 directions at the same time. From the west, newcomers were arriving, suburb seekers, commuters, people whose political identity was formed somewhere else. They brought their own voting habits, Republican voting habits. They didn't have local Democratic loyalties. They were, in the cold arithmetic of elections, a wave. Now, from within, from the black community that had been in Johnston County for centuries, that had been systematically excluded from countywide politics since 1898 and the white supremacy campaign, that had been fighting for representation through civic leagues and school boards and town councils since the 1940s, there was a different kind of momentum building. Dorothy Johnson's victory wasn't a surprise to anyone who had been paying attention. She had been decades. She's been here, building exactly the kind of civic credibility that translates in the votes. She had done the work. 2 different stories, 2 different forces, 1 election year. And they produced one of the most genuinely complicated electoral outcomes in Johnston County's modern history, a Republican takeover of county government in the same cycle that produced the county's most significant milestone for black political inclusion. Neither story cancels the other. Neither explains the other away. The same county that was becoming a Republican stronghold was also, finally for the first time ever, electing an African American to countywide office as a Democrat, which means her win required a meaningful number of white voters to cross a line that had never been crossed before. Now, here's the postscript that deserves to be said. Dorothy Johnson served on the Johnston County Board of Election until 2018. 20 years she was on the board. She won re-election multiple times in a county that was becoming more Republican every cycle. She served through the growth boom, through the school overcrowding crises that came with suburban expansion, through every budget fight and curriculum dispute and school construction debate that defined Johnston County education in the 2000s and 2010s. She received the Order of the Longleaf Pine in 2019, the highest honorary award the state of North Carolina gives to its citizens. It's amazing. She died in 2024. Her obituary read in the local paper. It described a woman who had moved here with a baby when her husband went to Vietnam, who built her life in Johnston County across 6 decades, and who had passed 2 school bonds before she ever ran for office, and who had become the first African American ever elected to countywide office in a county that was formed in 1746. And I've met her, I talked to her many times, and she was an amazing lady. Y'all, that's not a small thing. It happened in 1998, the same year Republicans took the county commission. 2 stories, 1 county, 1 year. And that's pretty much the rest of it. Until next time, be good.